In the game Dome Keeper, there are a total of 8 different gadgets that you can obtain as you mine through the undergrounds. However, not all of them are made equally. I will tell you my opinion in this video on all of them and go through them in very specific detail on how they are good, bad, or just so-so. So on the bottom and ranked 8th is the probe. Realistically, the condenser is almost on par with the probe, but at least you get some water from the condenser. For the probe, what it essentially does is making sure that you can get your resources earlier. However, unlike other games where the timing is really crucial, Dome Keeper does a pretty good job to almost make sure that you can get at least some resources every time you enter the mines. Throughout my time in Dome Keeper, I have had only one time where I was just not getting enough iron in the you ask for it difficulty, but I was still able to power through and still won in the end. By the way, that video is also out on the channel right now, and you can see how I was able to get through it with the limited number of iron that I was getting. Getting back to the probe though, it is just a very optional gadget that provides a very limited benefit. If you mine every 3rd level and keep consistently at it, you won't be missing any resources anyways, so there's really no use for the probe. The caveat here is that you can have both the teleporter and the probe. This way you can teleport back to base every time you use the probe to recharge it, making it incredibly efficient at locating resources. However, I have learned the hard way that whenever you want a specific gadget, it never shows up. So it's almost never a good idea to take the probe hoping you can get the teleporter later on. So even though everything else is better than the probe, but let's say hypothetically that you do take the probe, do you take any upgrades, and what upgrades do you take? I think at least the triple scan and the scan radius increase are needed to make the gadget useful. Otherwise, if you have it, just don't put any upgrades into it and it can be just used as a good to have thing. I mentioned briefly when I was talking about the probe, this condenser is quite bad. However, it still does produce water, and it can be comboed with the converter to generate a lot of resources, especially iron. However, the condenser on its own is just a water generator. Water as a resource in Dome Keeper is not as important as the other 2 resources. Iron is used in almost every major upgrade, and cobalt is used to keep the dome repaired. If the game doesn't offer me any water, I believe I can still win a brutal run. Of course, there are different uses for water, especially for the other gadgets and also the primary gadget. So the condenser is not useless. However, on a normal run with normal luck, you can almost always find enough water for whatever upgrades you want. The limiting factor is almost never water, but iron instead. I think if the game can be balanced that the gadget upgrades can use more water and less iron, it will be better. Alright, as for the upgrades, personally I find it a waste of resources to upgrade this, but you can maybe upgrade it to produce more water. The overcharge upgrade is decent so that you don't have to spend water to overcharge your primary gadget, but you probably need to be playing on a large map or prestige mode to justify the 10 iron and 5 water upfront cost. Overall, I think there's always some other upgrade that's much better than the upgrades for the condenser. Some people might expect Drillbert here, but that little dinosaur is much better than the blast mine. The blast mine doesn't need any upgrades to be good. It is decent without upgrades, and of course it can be much better with upgrades. However, the bomb works against the teleporter. They are anti-synergistic. The reason being you cannot take the bomb with you through the teleporter, so you have to carry the bomb down by yourself. Another reason that the bomb is not that good is the charge time. There is this annoying charge time for the blast mine for what you can do with your drill. It is essentially an instant drill that explodes in a radius. So, for the upgrades, I haven't played around with them too much. I'm pretty sure the blast mine would be great with maxed upgrades, but personally I just think the upgrades cost too much. A hypothetical combo is having the blast straight down upgrade with the lift to easily extend the lift downwards. Still, it does need quite a few resources to be put into it to be actually good. Of course, having an instant drill is great when you have a smaller map because there aren't that many blocks to begin with, so I would definitely take this over Drillbert if I'm playing on small or medium map sizes. However, if I'm playing on large, huge, or prestige mode, I would definitely take Drillbert instead. So I believe there's a misconception and a lot of controversy about Drillbert. It is actually a pretty decent gadget. This gadget is essentially adding another miner into the mine. I mean, technically, it can only mine horizontally, so let's say maybe half a miner instead. Still, with a couple of upgrades, you won't even need to check on it. Just leave it to its thing and it is a very long-lasting gadget that can have plenty of benefits. Unlike the blast mine, the basic dinosaur without any upgrades isn't very good at all. It is slow at drilling and you need to check on it once in a while to make sure it doesn't go to sleep or hit a dead end. However, basic conditioning 1 and 2 can help a lot with that. And these upgrades are dirt cheap too. If it hits a dead end, basic conditioning 2 makes sure that it will simply turn around and walk back. Your mine will always have a hole in the ground for the dinosaur to drop down to for it to start mining another layer. So now let's address the elephant in the room, the sleep mechanic. Drillbert will drill for a certain number of hits depending on the upgrade level, and once he hits the limit, he will fall asleep. The game tutorial tells you that you have to go to him to wake him up, which makes him quite bad if you have to keep on constantly checking on him. However, what the game does not tell you is that if you just let him sleep, he will eventually wake up. You don't even need to check on him at all. Just let him do his thing. Of course, you do need to check on the tunnels that he has drilled for resources because he won't be collecting the resources for you. As for the upgrades, these upgrades are much cheaper compared to the blast mine. The two basic conditionings are a must, and if you have some spare resources, investing the upgrades to get his twin Drillbert, I think his name is Drillbert, it's even better. However, what you need to do, kind of check on him once in a while, is that to make sure he is not stuck between two permanent walls and just walking back and forth. I've had it happen to me before that they're just walking back and forth, so you just need to drill down a few blocks and they'll just drop down to continue drilling. Of course, that probably won't happen in the early game and probably will most likely happen very late into the game, and by that time you probably already have the relic. Of course, the maze modifier would make Drillbert quite bad, but on the other hand, the maze screws up several other gadgets that it might even warrant a new list just for the maze condition. When I first began to play Dome Keeper, I didn't understand how the converter is good. I mean, you're converting one resource into another when you can just get them in the mines, right? Not necessarily. There are two upgrades for the converter that makes it really good, and you only use this converter for these two conversions. So the first one is to upgrade the water conversion efficiency, and the other is the iron duplication. Okay, let's dissect both upgrades in more detail. I mean, who doesn't like turning 1 iron into 5 irons, right? You're just getting 4 irons for free from the exchange. However, the conversion speed is really slow. 2.5 cycles, or 2.5 waves of enemies. If you don't have enough water for the water conversion, you might as well do this. To be honest, getting extra iron from thin air comes at a price, and the 2.5 cycles price is not that bad at all. This is just an extra 4 iron on top of whatever iron you're getting in the mines, and it can definitely help you get to those better upgrades much faster. The other upgrade is the water efficiency one. That requires you to have some spare water resources. Of course, more often than not, you would have those extra water supply, then you know what to do with them. So why not convert 1 water to 4 irons? You still get 4 extra irons like the iron duplication, but you get your iron in 1.2 cycles instead. That's less than half the amount of time compared to iron duplication. So these 2 upgrades are the ones that I always get if I have the converter, and all of the other upgrades are probably never used. What you always want is to convert 1 resource to more resources, not more resources to 1 resource. These top 3 gadgets are very close to each other and can be taken one over the other depending on the difficulty, the map size, and most importantly, when you actually get them in your run. Of course, when you're pretty deep into the mine, you might want to get the stun laser, but if it's early, you would take the lift or the teleporter. Now, the reason that the stun laser is third is more the fact that I really enjoy using the lift. Otherwise, I think they're probably at the same rank. I don't think anyone hates this gadget or thinks it's useless. Even without upgrades, it can prevent damage to your dome. On top of that, it is the only weapon gadget that actively prevents the enemy from attacking your dome. As for the upgrades, I like to get the automation to just activate the laser even if I couldn't make it back in time for the beginning of the wave. Also, it only costs water, so that's some good water use without using any iron. For the other upgrades, I will get the laser duration and the move speed first before the damage. While it's good to have it do more damage, but that's not what the stun laser is designed to do. It is simply a weapon to prevent enemies from attacking, not actively killing the enemies. If you defend well and actually use the resources to upgrade your laser or sword, the damage should be from your actual main weapon, not the stun laser. So overall, I don't think there are any downsides or bad aspects to the stun laser. It is just a very good gadget overall and can help prevent a lot of damage in tough situations. I don't know if there is any controversy with the lift, but I do know that Northern Lions thinks the lift sucks for some reason. From his gameplays, I can say that what he does is not how you're supposed to use the lift. Unlike the stun laser, there are some bad things with the lift, but the fact that you don't have to drag your resources up to the surface anymore means just more time to mine and find the actual resources in the mine. When you have the lift, what you do not do is to drag resources up by yourself. You let your orbs do that for you. Even though it is quite slow for the orbs to do that, but you can upgrade the lift, and when you upgrade it, you can even find yourselves sometimes not keeping up with the orbs to always have some resources in the lift for the orbs to drag to the surface. I have heard some people say that the lift is not as good in larger maps because you must drag the resources horizontally for a longer distance. but still, you don't have to drag them up yourself, especially in larger maps. When you're in a larger map, just the travel time from the depth of the mine to the surface can take a really long time, and you don't want to spend that time flying and dragging the resources up by yourself. What you want to use that time for is to mine more resources and just dragging them into the lift instead. Okay, now let's address the bad parts of the lift. If your path downward is blocked by a wall, then of course the lift is basically rendered useless. So what you want to do is not take the lift if you're doing a maze run. Other than that, I don't think there is anything else bad with the lift, unless I'm missing something. Let me know what you think about the lift in the comments below. So something what I would like to call are some perks in the lift that you might want to know. One is that the lift can't lift anything other than resources, so that includes but are not limited to gadget blocks, tree seeds, the bomb, eggs, teleporter, Drillbert. This is more of a perk rather than a downside, because if this was a thing, it would be just too OP for it to do that. As for the upgrades, I always like to take all of the first level on the lift. So 1 extra orb, orb speed 1, and keeper speed 1. Throughout my time with Dome Keeper, I've experienced that this is simply good enough for the lift to do decently. Maybe if you're playing on a huge map, you may want the keeper speed 2 upgrade and carry 4 resources. But so far in my runs, I've done large maps. You ask for difficulty, brutal, medium difficulty, etc, etc. There is just simply enough downtime between the pockets of resources that the lift can just do its thing before you fill it with resources again. Well, to nobody's surprise, teleporter is number 1. It is number 1 because you can teleport resources as well as the keeper almost instantly back and forth between your base and the depth of the mine. So that eliminates all of the travel time. So when you have the teleporter, the keeper's speed upgrade can take a back foot, and you can use the iron saved up to upgrade something else. Of course, in its basic form, the teleporter is only used as a one-way teleporter because you still need to drag the resources back to the surface. However, once you get the resource teleporter and the keeper teleporter again upgrade, that's when the real teleporter comes online. What you can do is to drag all of the resources into a hole that you have created in the mine and just let the teleporter do its thing. All you need to do is fly back to it once the enemy wave is approaching. Some good upgrades other than the 2 essential ones are the teleporter speed and the material teleporting speed. These 2 upgrades will make the teleporter really fast to teleport the keeper as well as resources. All in all, I think all of the upgrades are good in the teleporter, but you do want to get the material teleporter and the keeper teleporter again. So for those 2 upgrades, you want to get them as soon as possible to have the actual real teleporter come online. So the teleporter, of course, is quite slow to get started, but the benefit of having it when you get it upgraded can save you so much time that you can use to mine more resources. Overall, the time that it saves would make it the number 1 gadget in Dome Keeper.